So, Scott, you wanted to kind of talk about how a lot of the military men and women are refusing to receive the COVID vaccine.
Yeah, it's a real weird scenario, and I'm kind of, I'm all for let's choose, but when you join this man's army, as everybody knows, especially back even towards Desert Storm and all the previous times when they've had to, almost experimentally vaccinate. Actually, goes back to the Second World War when they were trying to figure out just how much exposure next to a nuclear bomb can our soldiers take, and basically risking their lives to save lives in the future, kind of thing. But this doesn't really fall into that category. So some of the statistics that are out were 40%, nearly half of US Marines declined to take the coronavirus vaccine. And and it hasn't given me too many statistics for the entire military. I don't know how much information is out there, but that kind of says enough to me because, first of all, what are Marines doing? Well, a lot of them are deployed on battleships. Uh, and it's not all the Navy. The Marines do a whole bunch of different things, but and I don't know if I got that wrong or not. I know the Navy does battleship, the Navy does subs, and the Marines do kind of a little bit of everything. They're just kind of all around,
Yeah.
badasses. But either way, the point of
But
it
no,
is
you're
is
right about the Navy being on battleships. My
well, I have a
drummer was
Navy
in the
friend on a
Navy, so
sub,
yeah.
and let's just say not just the Marines, but let me go ahead and use the Navy example. And I don't know about the Navy. Maybe they're forcing the Navy, and I would hope so. And for this reason, you're talking about a very closed environment, and if some particular strain didn't, if you didn't have them vaccinated, could possibly kind of like a cruise ship, it could just fly through there, and if you remember correctly, that happened at the beginning of the coronavirus epidemic. There were disabled battleships, and I think in the Pacific somewhere off to the China coast, that were literally down because there were so many soldiers sick. And I'm not wrong about this. It did happen, and
Yeah,
it
you're
was it
right.
was in
Yeah.
the news. But the point of it is, it's like, okay, so now that we didn't have a vaccine anywhere near at that point. Now that we have a vaccine, why would any of them, considering the rate of allergic reactions and the rate of, even people who supposedly get sick right off the bat, um, that have some kind of secondary reaction, because it the any kind of the reactionary rate is as low or lower than any of those standard vaccines that go out for our children these days, which have literally saved hundreds of millions of lives, if not billions of lives, actually, for as much as people have been vaccinated over the years across the world. But why would you not say, I'm sorry, this is a requirement. It's for the health of your fellow soldier. Like, I don't get how they're allowing people to say no for that, as it's such a public health issue. I mean, you can be an anti-vaxxer if you want, and I'm going to make fun of you for it, Mr. Flat Earth. But our military's smarter than that, so it makes me wonder why they would do that. Like,
Yeah,
let's
like
get real.
yeah,
Yeah,
if you don't mind me, yeah, going in here. Yeah, like I don't understand why they're even giving them the option. And I know you might have not you, but the listener might have an issue with saying military men shouldn't have an option on vaccines. But like you were saying before, they haven't for many times. I mean, every guy I know who signed up for the military, outside of the haircut and that whole boot camp thing, you're also getting injected with tons of different stuff.
yeah. And in Desert Storm, they injected them with anti-anthrax stuff that made a whole shit ton of them sick. There's even jokes about it in many movies. Well, in one with David Duchovny in the movie Evolution, by the way, which is really funny. Um, but they made a lot of people sick from that. Probably some
Yes,
people so
yeah.
sick that, yeah, it was a dangerous thing. It was experimental. This is not that kind of vaccine.
No.
This is something the entire public's using. If it had any kind of seriously detrimental risk, it would. I just don't get it. I would like to hear more about it, but all we have is the statistic now, and I need to know why. So I want some opinions of soldiers of why they chose not to do that.
Well, I think the interesting thing too, and I will say just to, I was looking up this just briefly while I was getting everything set up, and I will say the Military Times does say one third. Um, so that number is
And that's
dropping.
probably an over. That's probably an all-encompassing military.
Yeah,
I was just looking at the statistic for Marines, and it's 40%.
and
So I'm sure that's probably on the higher end, but still, if the average is 30, then it's pretty close to that all around.
here's the other thing I would throw in too is I think probably most men and women around that age, that 18 to 21, that's probably the rate at which they're all getting vaccinated. Is probably around 40% are signing up for it. I think as time goes on, they might get it more, but I don't know. It is a little bit concerning, um, and partially because of how political it has become. But there's the new variant that is coming out, or that has came out, I should say, that is more contagious, is more deadly.
Well, they
Um,
say
you
the
know,
UK variant now is like the dominant
yeah,
infector, right?
yeah, yeah, and we see, Michigan shutting down again. I guess it's coming back again. And I think I said it last week, and I know one of our listeners said I was being um, uh, I was being offensive because I said, look, in a month or two, if you die of COVID, like, I'm sorry, I don't really have any, sympathy for you. But I kind of don't because, like, we're at a point where, I mean, I got my second vaccination yesterday, and I'll be honest, I felt kind of crappy today, a little tired. I'm gonna be fine though. My arm hurts, whatever. I'm fine. Um, it, it's widely available to pretty much everyone. Uh, I'm 36, 37, something like that, and I've got one.
Something
So,
like that.
I can't remember, but yeah, we all are able to get this thing, and for me too. And let me ask you a question while we're talking about it. I think it's kind of an interesting point. So I have about five, just like pretty, I would say, right-leaning. Some I would kind of consider far right, like about five friends who subscribe to like that political ideology. And they range from, acquaintances to people I'm really close with. Like, you sometimes I don't even know if I count you in on that because like this is not a right-leaning position you're taking, and I almost think it does a disservice to count you in on that.
Well,
Uh,
it's almost a weird thing because if you think about it, soldier, you do what you're told to do, kind of thing.
right.
That's not exactly hippie lefty. You know what
No,
I
no,
mean?
no, no, exactly. You're right. You're right on that too. But to almost give you any sort of position is almost,
I'm going to lean on
you're
the
very,
side of science, is
yeah,
what I'm going to do.
you're fluid with your thoughts, so you're not included in this. So about five of my friends, and then including you, back in about, I'm gonna say December or January of last year, all six of you were talking to me about COVID and this Chinese virus and blah blah blah. And I remember specifically telling all six of you, I'm not worried about it. It's not a big deal. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, I admit it. I was not one of those people who was like, I trumped it, honestly. And then around March, and even when they started saying shutdowns, I was like, I think it'll be done in a month or two. I really, yeah, don't listen to me when it comes to pandemics, apparently. I am not that guy. But slowly, from that point on, those five turned on it. Like all six of you guys who are, considered kind of on the right. Again, I don't consider you on the right. You're more fluid. You use logic, which doesn't mean that's a right thing. It's just that you'll be right or left. Whatever
Does that make
makes
me
sense.
political gender fluid?
Right? Yeah, you're binary. But the other five of my conservative friends have moved to the point now where they think it's a hoax, and it's like you've got to a point where you were the one worried about it, and the only thing I can think of that is really, or not even like some of them say it's a hoax. I will say a majority of them are like, well, it's just not that deadly, so I'm not worried about it. But what happened? Like, why was it this thing that, for my conservative friends, this was so important? And I mean, you guys talked to me a lot about it, and I was like, I blew it off, but you keep telling, oh, this is happening. I remember you were telling me about how, like, actually, you and James, who's the other guy one of the other guys I'm talking about, were talking about how they just shut down Wuhan, and they were doing like basically like they were sanitizing the entire city.
Yeah, they were building new hospitals, quote,
Yeah,
and then those were just basically where people were going to die. You
and
couldn't visit anybody in them or bring them any supplies.
I even went back like on BitChute and I started looking up videos back in December 2019 and January 2020, and a lot of those guys were talking about how bad this is, how serious it is, and blah blah blah. And then again, you fast forward to like March, April, and they're all calling it a hoax. It's 5G. It's this and that.
Yes,
Why did that switch? That's what I don't
I
understand.
think
Like,
well, I'll tell you why it switched for those people who aren't of the scientific mind and don't realize that there's a new flu variant. And there's always the possibility of something or something released from a lab accidentally, because that's one of the easiest viruses to mess with. So, I mean, when the government starts shutting down and saying these kinds of commerce can't happen, when people start losing their jobs, when people start, I'm saying when they saw, into not only a lot of your rights, especially for Michigan, their governor is Gretchen is a wonderful person, and I think it's kind of like this. Well, I don't trust the government. So if they're saying this is the reason, it must be bullshit. It's kind of like I don't even know if they truly believe that. They just reject that because they feel like they're falling into the yes sir, no sir, bootlicker. I'll do what you say, Mr. Governor, kind of attitude. I think it's just your basic rebellion for rebellion, and they're choosing the wrong battle. You know
see,
what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, no, yeah, if you want to battle nuance on that, yeah, and you want to say, no, Whitmer, you're wrong. We should be able to do landscaping still. We should, be able to do, um, social distancing and keep our businesses open. Yeah, totally. But it's almost
Yeah.
like they're doing themselves a disservice by being like, no, it's not real. It's not.
No, it
You know
is.
what
I
I'm
mean,
saying?
it depends on where they live, with whether they're rural or they're metropolitan. It just, if it's a lot easier to reject those things when you don't have lots of other people around you scowling at you for not, wearing a mask, or, if you've got a shirt that says, it says America, no vaccines. And I mean, like I said, you're always going to have to, if you can't evaluate a situation based on facts that you can at least find, at least what we would consider facts, to know that it is deadly, it's gonna come here. The Chinese, well, whatever gets out of China, whether it be video, pictures, reports, it's probably a lot worse in China because, unlike here, it's really hard to circulate things on their networks. They're
Oh yeah,
closed
yeah.
networks. So I mean, just taking those things into account, anybody with a little sense would go, "Whoa, what's going on over there, China?" And hey, that, like I said, I think it's just a form of rebellion to rebel. Period.
Can I make two predictions? And I hate being this kind of person because I feel like a snob, but I can guarantee that the right wing is going to take two. Uh, they're going to take two positions on two things. And here it is: the kids at the border. They're either going to complain that none of them are vaccinated, or they're going to complain that they'll have COVID. One of the two. Even though the majority of the right doesn't even think COVID's a problem. All right. Now let me throw out another one. This one's in the future. Okay. This one's far future. Another prediction. People can go back on and check this out. But our third world countries and smaller countries, they're not getting vaccinated, and it's actually really bad because as much as America can vaccinate, that doesn't stop this thing from mutating. The entire world needs to get vaccinated. I guarantee you that if this thing starts showing more mutation in places like Guatemala and I don't know, go on, throw out whatever you want, Chile, wherever, Israel, they're gonna blame them for this thing mutating, even though those same people didn't get a vaccination and said it's not that deadly.
Well, yeah, and I'll just throw this out, even regardless. This won't be necessarily a side. You can't stop nature. You can fuck with nature. Just ask the Chinese. and we are too in many labs across the world, just like everyone else. But you can't you can't beat your basic, Darwinism, meaning it's going to happen. Some people are going to die. Viruses and bacteria are always going to mutate and have new resistances. Sometimes they even evolve into completely benign forms that aren't harmful, and
Usually,
sometimes they do the opposite.
usually that happens when we have some sort of herd immunity, like polio. Like polio is a great example of like it did, and it's just gotten kind of weaker over time. But that's because we have herd immunity.
No, we don't. We're not immune to polio.
Well, because
Uh-uh.
of vaccinations,
No,
we've
most of us
reached.
don't have polio. No, most of us, they even stopped polio vaccines.
Oh no,
Um,
wait. I'm sorry. I completely screwed that. Rebellia was what I was thinking of. Sorry. I
oh,
was thinking of
rubella. Right,
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Thrush, otherwise known as. I mean, and that works for a lot of things. If you can get vaccinations to a point where not only do you have herd immunity, you have worldwide. In other words, you eradicate the disease by basically making enough people during a time frame for that not to exist. Because as long as it's not a virus that exists in animals as well, and it's a human only variant, there's always a possibility that you can do that. Uh, but this is the flu virus. So let's just say we're always, and variants of this exist in many different animal forms, otherwise known as the bird flu and the pig swine flu. We're never, and those always have the potential to jump over to humans because genetically those viruses are not only simple in a lot of ways, but when you have viruses are a simple cell, they can evolve very quickly in millions of generations in a week kind of thing. So we haven't beat the flu before. We deal with it every year. And just because there's a new variant of it doesn't mean we're ever going to kick its ass. You know what I mean? It's always the flu is gonna be there. So it's more like, if you ask me, I say that governments that are like they should do some. It's kind of feckless in the same point. If they said, okay, worldwide treaty, nobody from here on out, like by the way they did like in 1976, shall do these things, shall produce these weapons, shall make this technology, and one of those things could be biological warfare associated with flu viruses or these super common, highly transferable things. Make your mustard gas, but don't make something that could not only kill your enemy, but eventually come back and kill you.
So would not have stopped this, by the way.
No, I,
Yeah, unfortunately. Like,
we can prevent it. We can all be a lot safer and all that kind of stuff. But if the virus mutates so differently from a vaccine that you took for a variant that was quite a bit different genetically, you're probably pretty good chance to get reinfected. Or I wouldn't say reinfected, be infected with. That's why we go get our
I mean, and that's the whole point. And I guess part of me is, in this place where I'm like, this entire 2020, all I heard is we're gonna reach herd immunity and it'll be over. Okay, well
Yeah, that's the
now,
dumbest thing. I
you
never
know,
believed that.
but even if there is some truth to the fact that we can get back to normalcy with herd immunity, okay, cool. Then go get your vaccine. Like, why are you now talking about how it's
Yeah,
killing?
exactly.
It killed DMX. No, it didn't. Coke killed
How many of those
DMX.
people had a problem with going to get their free flu shot before?
And that's the other thing I wonder too. Are they just low key afraid of getting a shot? It does kind of
No,
hurt. You know what I'm saying?
it's a rebellion. It's a rebellion.
You,
Somehow they see that as I'm effing the man over if I say no. I guarantee
no,
it's
you're
what it
you're
is.
you're 100% right. I will say
I
quickly.
just choose different battles for that kind of thing. If I want to f over the government, I'll do something different. These are the same delusional people that think, well, probably not exactly the same people because we're talking about, but I'm saying that's the same kind of reasoning that somebody like we've had some mass shootings recently, which have been people of all different colors and all races, which I'm so happy about since
I
it's
know
not.
we're bringing
But
diversity to terrorism. It's great.
yeah, but the point of that is those people's answer to whatever they're suffering from uh, is, oh, I'm just going to go shoot a bunch of random people. Well, that's kind of stupid. Aren't you at least angry at one person in particular? It's kind of like I don't get that because I don't that would never bring me just some sense of satisfaction if you just were like, oh, and let's see, a mama with a cart and you small toddler, boom. It's like what does that bring you? But then again, that's just like old Matt Gates. We can't really delve into that mindset.
No, and I think there is that question of. Oh, real quick, though, I will say, before I go into this, the part of the reason why we didn't look into the Wuhan lab and all that is because we funded that study of the coronavirus. Like, this is like it's like worlds collide in a perfect manner. America actually funded them to study this
Well,
pandemic. You know what
I'm
I'm saying?
sure we have. I'm sure
And
we've
that
spread money all over it, and I
and that,
don't think it was intentional. I
no,
honestly
no,
think
I
it got
agree.
out on accident.
I agree. I agree. But no, what you were saying with the other thing though about like the mass shootings and stuff, I think just to leave you with this question, and it's a good thing to kind of ask friends and just kind of do like just a quick like psychological study. Ask people, hey, if there was a comet heading to Earth and you had one day to live, what would you do?
Talk about the dinosaur size comet. So
Yeah, it's
10
over.
kilometer wide comet,
Yeah,
6 mile wide asteroid, whatever.
it's over.
What would you do?
And you'll be
I would.
surprised how many people would be like, "Oh, I'd kill somebody." And it's like, that's disturbing. You are because they could easily have that same situation happen to them if they're terminal with cancer. You know what I'm saying? Like, you
Yeah,
really learn
yeah.
a lot of
And
people, a
they
lot
also
about
not
people.
thinking about, let's see, travel time during the biggest panic in all history. Am I going to be able to get to Site B to execute the guy who stole money from me 20 years ago, or yeah, kill my ex-wife or some shit like that? Yeah, no, 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 no. For me, I kind of laugh in the same way that, you know, I'm sure my wife would like me to hear that, but it's kind of like if it was the total end of the world. There's a news interview where they were interviewing people for one of the $1 billion lottery jackpots in like some quickie mart, and you can see it on YouTube, by the way. And she comes up to this random guy. He's not really rough looking, but he's not. He looks, working class guy. And she says, "Hey, sir, what would you do with $1 billion if you won?" And he, without even flinching, turns to the camera and he says, "I'm going to do a whole lot of cocaine with a lot of
Yes,
hookers."
I love that. It's one of the best.
It's so good because it wasn't scripted and it was an honest answer.
Complete honest answer. I don't know how we got there, but yeah, we this is a and as we start living just fine and not wearing masks anymore, people are gonna be like, oh well, I'll get one. Like it's not a big deal. But I think a lot of people are scared, honestly. Like I think, and a lot of people are either scared or aren't thinking about the benefits of it. And part of that is Dr. Fauci. Dr. Fauci needs to stop saying, hey, get a vaccination and then wear your mask for 10 more years. Like, no, encourage the fact that once we get vaccinated, you can go back to concerts and we can, I don't know, go back to banging Matt Gates on Tinder, like whatever, you know,
He's not using Tinder. That's too public.
grinder, whatever we got for him,
Right? Yeah, that sounds better for
is there
gay.
is there one for toddlers? I don't know,
Yeah,
but
you don't have to minimize the threat and give people the reality to and it's just for people are not going to do the mask thing for that long. I'm sorry, you just can't force them to.
no, and
Even if
and
it
they shouldn't, especially if they're vaccinated.
Yeah, but I mean, even if they're not vaccinated, of course, we all know the mask only prevents a small percentage, maybe 10, 30% chance of an infected person passing it to somebody else. So you're actually trying to protect other people,
Yeah, yeah.
even if you're healthy. So, but my point of that is it's not really effective. What's really effective is washing your hands, not touching your
Well,
face, you know.
I think though, so look, I disagree with you in that, and because I think what you're taking it from, and I think it's fair, is like American studies. But like, if you look at Japan, um, they have a much higher protection rate than we do, and it's because they've been wearing masks for
Right. I
decades.
think that's true. The Japanese won't have any problems with it. The Chinese have been wearing masks forever because of horrible, horrible pollution levels.
And,
So,
and and like with, yeah, and like with Japan, it's like they just literally can't miss work. It's like we've you home like
well, Japan's density is off the
and that,
scale.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
exactly. You know, that feeds into it. Like for instance, weird side note, you cannot sit down in public in Japan. A police officer will come up and tell you to keep moving. Interesting. But like they've kind of perfected wearing the mask, washing the hands, not touching. And I think if we were at that rate, I think we would have that too. And I actually think there's kind of some, maybe if we ever get the chance to talk about it, maybe some something to look into. The
But I'd say the biggest difference, huge cultural differences between America and the Japanese. And the other fact is, we have inalienable rights guaranteed to us by the Constitution. And whether that contributes, which I'm sure it does, but giving people those ability of risks. And so that is a trade off that personally, I'm not willing to give. I'm not willing to, even if our culture changed towards that direction. Thank God you can't get arrested for sitting down.
I didn't say arrested. They just tell you to keep moving.
Well, what if you say no? That's what I'm saying.
Hey, there's no homeless in.
Not the, it's not the same kind of level, and I have watched a big documentary on that, and
They're in the
they're
woods.
different. It's different. Yeah, it's not like our homeless. They're not a bunch of drug addicts.
I mean, not no. Anyway, up next we're gonna talk about Dan Crenshaw.